We are often taught that the Holocaust was an event that occurred quite quickly, that Adolf Hitler gained power in 1933, and the next thing you know, the Holocaust began. But what if I told you that's not the reality of the origins of the Holocaust? Join me in learning about the reality of the origins of the Holocaust. Historian Raoul Hiltberg divides the origins of the Holocaust in two ways: precedents and antecedents. The precedents are the historical parallels that affected countries worldwide, and the antecedents are the particular activities and actions that led over time to the Holocaust. Precedents. There are two main precedents we encounter: modernity and antisemitism. I know, how could modernity cause the Holocaust? Let's find out. One of the precedents of the Holocaust that almost no one considers is modernity, more specifically, the rise of the modern state. With the rise of the modern state, countries began to see their population as a resource. Because of this, governments began to quantify and control their population. But in what ways were governments controlling and quantifying their population? They categorized society by race, gender, and ethnicity, as on census documents. Governments required children to go to school. Laws increased wages, and bureaucracies like the Occupational Safety and Health Administration in the United States have left to safer working conditions. Bureaucracies like the Centers for Disease Control monitor epidemics, and new laws began to require citizens to get vaccines to protect everyone. By categorizing population, extending education to all, improving working conditions, and creating a healthier population, governments have learned to control and mobilize their populations. Because now the population was viewed as a resource, governments began to perfect it and use it. This started with the eugenics movement, which aimed to improve the human population. But there are two kinds of eugenics: positive and negative. Positive eugenics improves society's health through medical advances such as vaccines, while negative eugenics have harmed parts of the population through policies such as the sterilization of a group of people so that they could not reproduce. The rise of the modern state also brought the creation of mass politics. Mass politics gave the population the sense that they were being heard and involved in the decisions that concerned their countries. Mass politics occurred on a large scale and attempt to change the public's opinion through the use of propaganda and by making them feel they're part of something bigger. Can we see mass politics being used in Nazi Germany? Yes. Hitler and the Nazi Party used mass politics constantly to win the public support. During his rallies at Nuremberg, for example, Hitler will animate his audience through charismatic speeches punctuated with carefully planned gestures and expressive speech. Mass politics can even be seen today. Some politicians use it to rally support by making people feel they're part of something bigger while trying to change public opinion through repetition of lies and slogans. Antisemitism is a precedent that most people know regarding the Holocaust. Antisemitism can be defined as the hostility to or prejudice against Jews. After the First World War, many Germans blamed the Jews for the loss of the war, increasing the popularity of pre-existing antisemitism in the country. But Germans were not alone in their antisemitism. Jews have been targeted by different groups for persecution for 2 millennia. There are 5 key types of antisemitism that historians often discuss: hatred because of religious views, hatred because of perceptions of Jews' control of the economy, hatred because of political associations, such as connections with socialism, hatred because of their perceived biological inferiority, hatred of a group that differs from the majority nationality. And the Nazi Party used different types of antisemitism to spread their views. An example of this would be the Nazis' comparison of Jews to lice, to make them seem biologically inferior and not human. Antecedents. Road to the Holocaust. After Hitler came to power in 1933, he used antisemitism and the modern state to rally support. But what did this combination lead to? These types of preconditions are known as antecedents. First stop, antisemitic policies. One of the first stops on the path to the Holocaust were the Nuremberg Laws of 1935. The anti-Semitic policies were made to exclude Jews by creating an us versus them mentality. A law that separated Jews and Germans was the Blood Protection Act, which prohibited marriages and sexual relationships between Jews and Germans. With the help of mass politics and propaganda, Jews were portrayed as the enemy of the state, thus making people believe that Jews were the end of the Aryan race. Some of the policies were influenced by medieval Christian antisemitism, such as not considering Jews as citizens and marking Jews as them by forcing Jews to wear the Star of David. Because of the creation of the us versus them mentality, individual Germans began to exclude Jews on their own. Some German communities even began to prohibit the entrance of Jews in their towns when it wasn't a policy. Second stop, Kristallnacht. Anti-Semitic policies were the first step to expel Jews from Germany. To push the Jews out of Germany, Nazis became more violent. On the night of November 9, 1938, Nazis burned and destroyed Torahs, synagogues, and Jewish businesses. By the end of the night, the streets were filled out with broken glass from windows of Jewish businesses. Thus, the name Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass. Jews were persecuted, beaten, and some were even killed. As a result of Kristallnacht, 30,000 male Jews were taken to different work camps. Jews were also forced to pay all the damages that occurred to their houses and businesses. But Kristallnacht had an unintended effect. The international community and even many Germans condemned it. Because of this, Hitler distanced himself from the event and claimed he did not know about it and that it was spontaneous and not directed by the Nazi Party. Third stop, Ghettos. Because the Nazis believed the Jews had to be expelled from Germany and their attempts to get rid of them through the Nuremberg laws and Kristallnacht did not convince or allow the Jews to leave voluntarily, the Nazis went with the next step, expelling the Jews out of Germany by force. The Nazis created several plans, including one to send all Jews to Madagascar. This plan never became a reality because World War II had started and transport was needed to move troops. The Nazis settled with creating ghettos. But what is a ghetto? Ghettos were overcrowded portions of cities that caused Jews to suffer from diseases and exhaustion from being overworked and underfed. The ghettos were managed by the Jewish Council, formed from leaders of the community. One of their main jobs was to create lists of people who were going to be sent to labor camps and later killing camps. Many of these leaders were accused of saving their families and friends and sending the rest to be killed. Fourth stop, T4 program. By now, you've heard me talk about how the Nazis targeted the Jews to keep the German race pure. But did you know the first victims of the Nazis were people with disabilities? In 1939, the T4 program was designed to kill children with disabilities. But why target this specific group? The reason? Doctors and economists decided they were a burden to the state, and it was economical to kill them because they could not be a productive resource for the state. To fulfill the purpose of the program, the doctors practiced euthanasia, which typically means the painless killing of a patient suffering from a terminal disease, but in this case, it was murder. At first, the children were killed by being injected with a high dose of drugs. Because of the time it took and the negative effect it had on some of the nurses and doctors, the procedure was changed. The new procedure consisted of gassing the children in the back of a truck. The evolution of this killing program is an example of modernity. The Nazis saw a problem and fixed it, in a time-efficient and economical way, while protecting the doctors from patient contact. They were able to remove people who they viewed as unproductive while sparing the killers from psychological trauma. The procedures used for the T4 program were adapted later for the extermination camps to make it more efficient and economical to kill their victims. Fifth and final stop, Einsatzgruppen. The beginning of the war and invasion of several countries served as the perfect opportunity for Nazis to kill Jews. The Einsatzgruppen, killing units, began to shoot every Jew, man, woman, or child. This was their main assignment, because the killing of Jews was affecting the killers psychologically, using bullets needed for war, and spent time killing and burying Jews. The Nazi Party looked for an alternative. The alternative was the creation of death camps like Auschwitz, following the T4 program's concept and often led by T4 administrators. Conclusion. If there is something we can learn about the origins of the Holocaust, it is that it was a long and slow process that took over a decade to occur, as many thousands of people made individual choices. It was not plain and simple, as we're often taught, and it was not masterminded by Hitler alone. It was complicated and messy. It developed over time, beginning with segregation and ending with mass murder. We also must keep in mind that Germany was not the only antisemitic country during the early 1930s and mid-1940s. Even though we would like to point out a specific event for the cause of the Holocaust, we cannot. The truth is, there were many reasons and events that led to the final stop. These are its origins.